Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. You are on board the USS Focal Point, our patrol boat, not a pleasure cruise. We patrol the choppy waters of America's public life looking for the coordinates where truth intersect with politics. Our commander is on the bridge. The Scriptures, our map of the Holy Spirit, the navigator, and I serve as your loyal, humble, and cheerful first mate. And I'm honored to welcome aboard the USS Focal Point one of the ablest seamen in the world, Neil Mammen, good friend and author of the book 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation. Welcome, Neil, back to Focal Point.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Brian.
Great to have you with us. And Neil, I want to get right into the topic of your book. A lot of our folks are going to be familiar with this book under a former name. We've kind of repackaged this thing because we believe what's coming up with this election is so essential. And 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation. Talk to us a little bit about what this project is all about and how this book fits into that, because we are getting close to the 40th day. I think today we're 53 days out, so this thing kicks off in less than 2 weeks.
Yep, less than 2 months to decide the fate of America, I believe. Basically, the original book was Jesus is Involved in Politics. Why aren't you? Why isn't your church? And that was targeted towards people who were really wanted to convince others that Jesus was involved in politics. And we got great distribution. People were excited about that. But then people said, you know what? I want a book that I can actually have my church and my pastor actually lead people through, like a 40-day series. So we took the book. We took out all partisan references. We don't really talk about Republicans or Democrats or anything like that. We just talk about biblical issues and how they relate to government. And so we repackaged it into a 40-day series, 5 pages a day that you read. And then Tim and I recorded the DVD, which is a study guide. Basically, you watch 20 minutes of the study, the DVD, and then you have a Bible study session. And the idea here is get your pastor, or if your pastor won't do it, you can start a small Bible study in your home. With this, get the DVD. You can get it all on the AFR store. I think it's afa.net, and if you go to the store.
Yeah, you could go to store.afa.net, store.afa.net, or you can call the number 1-877-927-4917, 877-927-4917. Terrific resource for a small group, for a cell group, for a Sunday school class, for a prayer meeting at your church that meets on a weekly basis. These next 6-7 weeks are going to be absolutely central to the future of America. The book is 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation. You can get more information by going to 40 Days. That's the number 40, 40 Days to a godlynation.com. 40 Days to a godlynation.com. And Neil, I want to go back just for a minute about the basic premise, because a lot of Christians are very confused about this. And you really opened my eyes. You had a central role in sort of expanding my own awareness and understanding on this issue, because the title of the original book was Jesus is Involved in Politics, and most people, a lot of Christians say, no, he wasn't. He said, my kingdom is not of this world, and he wasn't involved in politics. So tell us why Jesus, we know from the gospel accounts, why we know that he was, in fact, involved in politics.
Well, because the biggest objective you obviously get is, well, Jesus never did anything with the Roman politicians. He never ran for office. He never talked to the Roman politicians. Well, there's a reason he didn't do that, because he wasn't a Roman citizen. But he was, however, a Jewish citizen, and a lot of people from the state of Judea. And a lot of people think, well, they were under Rome. Rome did everything. No, just like in Iraq, when we were in Iraq, Iraq had their own government. And the Jews, even though they were conquered by Rome, they still had their own government. In fact, they had a constitution, much like ours, which was the Torah. They could not change the Torah. They could not legislate above the Torah, but they had a legislative body that legislated just like our Senate and our Congress, that legislated all the lower laws, the lesser laws. And who were the people who legislated their laws? Well, it was obviously the Sanhedrin, which was a group of 72 elders, and they had the Chief Justice and the Vice Justice, and then they had 69 members or 70 members that legislated from there. Well, who were these people? Well, they were the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And all of a sudden, everything comes into perspective. You're like, wow, they actually had a full political system. In fact, our political system is based similar to that, because they sat in a semicircle. Our Senate sits in a semicircle. It was very similar to what they did. And so we now realize that Jesus was actually involved with them, and he was talking to them about how they'd misabused their constitution, because he said to them, look, the Sabbath was made for man, not man made for the Sabbath. He says, you know what, go back to the original intent of the law. And I always say Jesus was a strict constructionalist. He said, go back to the original intent of the law, look at what it was given for, and then you can make your laws according to that, because they were twisting it. And then he said, look, you've forgotten the key essential elements of the law. That's justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Well, justice obviously is a law issue. Mercy is a law issue, you know, mercy for criminals and for crimes and things like that, and for people. And the last one, faithfulness. What does he mean? Well, he means faithfulness to the law, constitutionalists. And over again, we see Jesus, whenever he's talking to these people, he talks to them about the law. So we see Jesus was involved in politics on a daily basis.
And he was upset with them because they were doing to their constitution, the Torah, the same thing that we see politicians doing today, just ignoring the plain meaning
of the law,
of the abiding kind of ruling legal document, and
deciding and reinterpreting any they want. And in fact, what's insidious about this is, imagine if you were you inherited a business from your father, and your father had a contract with some of his partners. And after your father dies, the partners come and they want to reinterpret the contract. Can they go to any judge and say, oh, judge, really what he meant, no, it doesn't matter what he really means, here's what we want it to mean today. Well, you go, no, that's not right. Well, guess what? The Constitution is a contract that our forefathers passed on to us. How dare the judges reinterpret it their own way?
You know, and it strikes me too, Neil, and you know, another a profound point. It's profound when it dawns on you. It's always been there. It's always been sitting there, and you just didn't understand the significance of it. You know, further proof that these Pharisees and Sadducees were involved in politics is they did pass laws that affected the everyday life of every citizen under their authority, but they also had the power to arrest people, to detain them, to put them on trial, to incarcerate them,
and
to
even,
punish them.
And even to execute that, and that was only, they lost that because they abused it. And so the Romans came and said, you're basically killing too many people. We're going to control that. And that's all. So they actually even had all the way, because remember, they had their own jailers. Remember the...
Yeah, because Peter and John, they get thrown into prison.
It was a Jewish prison. It was not a Roman prison. Right? And they had their own king. Their executive officer was Herod. And they had their own soldiers. In fact, chances are that the soldiers who killed the babies when Jesus was born were actually were Herod's men, not Roman soldiers. Because the Roman soldiers don't care if there's a new king.
Talking here with Neil Mammen, author of the book 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation, that we are here at American Family Association are doing as kind of a joint project with Neil, because we believe this is a great book. We believe the content's very important. We believe it's never more timely to get this book in circulation than right now, 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation. You can get more information by going to 40, that's the number 40 days to a godly nation.com. And you can also go to store.afa.net, or just go to our website, go to afa.net, and you'll be able to click on a banner. It'll get you to the store. Or you can call 1-877-927-4917, 877-927-4917, and you'll be able to get more information about the book and order up some copies. A great resource for your personal reading, for a small group that you may be involved in, for a discipleship group that you are a part of, for a cell group, a Bible study, a Sunday school class, or whatever. Next 40 days, we're at 53 days out, so less than 2 weeks out, this 40-day clock starts to tick, and November 6th is going to be a critically important day in American history. And Neil, one of the issues that came up today, in fact, I did some interviews with media after Paul Ryan's speech today, and you know, one of the issues that came up, and we're shifting gears here a little bit, but was the difference between Governor Romney's position on children that have been conceived through rape and Paul Ryan's position. Paul Ryan's position is that we should not make exceptions in those cases. Mitt Romney's position is we should. Now, tell us how to think about that from a Christian and biblical standpoint. Should we make an exception for a child who is conceived in rape? Why or why not?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. One of it is, what kind of laws can we get passed? And I always believe we should take the low-hanging fruit. But let's look at the theology or the thinking or the reason, the logic behind it. Let's say, as we believe, we can prove that the fetus is human. And I think we can do that. We can prove the embryo is human. We can prove that. In fact, if anybody says it's not, then the burden of proof is upon them to prove it's not human. Because if you want to kill something, you better prove it's not human. It's not my job to prove something is human before I let you kill it, or before I stop you from killing it. You have to prove it isn't human before you can kill it. So that's the first thing. So first, let me know if the fetus is human. Secondly, let's say that somebody gets raped. Let's say my sister got raped. Perish if that ever happens. Now, they arrest the rapist. They capture the rapist and they put him in court. While he's sitting in court, I may feel like going up and shooting him in the head, but I can't legally do that. So if I can't go up and shoot the guy who did the rape, why should I be able to go and kill the second innocent victim of that rape, which is the baby? If that baby is a human being, it doesn't make any difference how that human being came to be. That baby is a human being, and I don't have the right, because that baby did not do anything wrong. And so how heartless can we be to say, oh yeah, well, you just were born under the wrong circumstances, so let kill you. I mean, I asked the question, can I go up to Hitler's son, if Hitler had a son, who had never done anything, can I go up to Hitler's son and kill him? Oh, well, your dad killed 6 million Jews and, you know, 7 million gypsies and homosexuals and Christians. Can I go up to his son and kill him? No, I can't, because he's innocent.
You know, and I think often of, I think it's in the prophetic book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament where, you know, the prophet says, look, under this system of justice, God's system of justice, we do not punish children for the sins and the crimes of their fathers. And it seems like that principle also applies here.
Now, of course, somebody might say, well, didn't the Israelites punish the Gideonites and all that stuff? And that's a different argument altogether. And we can go there. We actually talk about it on in my paper. Some talking about how to argue against abortion without using.
And how can people get access to that paper? It's very effective.
Can go to noblindfaith.com. That's our ministry site. Noblindfaith, NOBLINDFAITH.com. And if you look for how to argue against abortion without using the Bible, we have a large paper there. Just download it for free and just use those arguments.
And again, what we want to focus on in the conversation with Neil today is the book that he has written. It's a great book, 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation. AFA is sponsoring the republication of this book. We want it distributed. We want to get it in the hands of all Americans. Critical. We've talked about this before, how fundamentally important this election is on November 6th. Really, in some ways, whether America even has a future is going to be determined by the decision the American people make on November 6th. It's important that everybody have all the information that they can get their hands on at this time of decision. 40 Days Towards a More Godly Nation. A way to go to afa.net. You can find a button there you can click and get access to this book. Buy it, read it, learn it, live it, love it. Neil Mammen, thanks for being my guest.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be right back in just 2 brief minutes. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.